People seem to be very infuriated, absolutely insufferable.
Is it really hatred towards Hinako?
I was just really surprised. That's one of my favorite things about House Silent Hill. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be back.
So how does it feel for you to be part of another big franchise after Apex Legends?
Oh my gosh, it has been just amazing. It's been very cool. I joined Apex after it's been out a couple of years, and it was amazing because for them the heroes mean so much. Like every time there is a new Apex Legend, it is a huge groundbreaking thing, and it's a whole new character and world and personality to explore. So there's been so many amazing loyal fans from that. But being in Silent Hill F, where I get to be here at the very beginning, where it's first getting introduced to everybody at the same time. That has been a really special experience, and to be part of something that is so much more narrative, and to be part of big story arcs like that. It's been it's been a very overwhelming and in different ways. I mean, the outpouring of amazing work for us, for the English cast, seeing all of the different microcosms in the Silent Hill communities, the different fandoms, the people that are just joining it, the people that have been longtime Silent Hill fans, the people that are, seeing all of the different layers that even I didn't see when I was recording it. I was like, oh, that's what yeah, okay, I see the flowers. I mean, my character Rinko has been a very hot topic in herself.
Yeah.
So that has been, again, overwhelming, and maybe the other side of it brings up a lot of weird feelings in me of I think I did my job well. People seem to be very infuriated. So that's good. But yeah, it's funny playing very different characters between Conduit and Rinko, where one is you're supposed to be rooting for her, and she's not very toxic. She's very supportive and wonderful, and just it tries her best to make everybody happy. Rinko is very much the opposite end of the spectrum, I would say.
This whole franchise itself is such an iconic franchise, and I know you kind of watched Silent Hill 2 remake on stream, and that was an interesting game itself. But before anything, were you familiar with the franchise? Were you familiar with what the icon is?
I mean, obviously I was familiar with the title. I was like, Silent Hill. I'm like, oh, that's a horror game. That's a really big horror game. I remember, and again, I had seen, some gameplay of it before, and remembering yeah, that's it's hard horror, it's body horror, it's stuff like that that is not super in my alley, that because it's a stressful playthrough for me. I usually like the pretty colors and ooh, escapism. This was oh, we're right in the thick of your worst nightmare. So it's been it was not something that I was super familiar with, that I had played through, but of course I knew of it. I knew that it was one of the really big horror video game titles. And yeah, it was only after I booked it that I started going into the lore, and I was like, oh, this is horrifying in a completely different reason than I thought. I thought it was going to be more of the gore and there is that. There's obviously a little bit of that, but it's horrifying in just how they really take a lot of terrible things from reality that are very grounded fears and really bring that to life.
Yes. Yeah, that's Silent Hill. It's psychological to the next level where we all relate to it. I'm like, oh gosh, that's so true. It's not fun. So when you auditioned this role, I'm assuming you didn't know what the project was, you didn't know what the character is. So how did that really happen? What's going on in the head of yours when an audition came out?
Yeah, I had absolutely no idea. I thought it was gonna be definitely not a Silent Hill game. It was interesting, you usually get code names for these type of auditions, and so you never really know what you're auditioning for. And they give you a pretty good breakdown of stuff of this is what the character is, this is the kind of role they play. This is a survival horror type game. So I was like, okay. But all the characters were mostly, Japanese schoolgirls and stuff. And so I was like, maybe it's an anime type thing. But this seems really dark for any, big Japanese horror games that I'm familiar with. So I was really kind of confused by it, but I was like, all right, we'll just shot in the dark and try to connect with the characters as much as I could. So yeah, the initial audition, it's like a lot of other auditions where I'm like, this is my best shot. I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but here you go. And then I got the call back, and I still didn't know what it was up until that point. And I was like, okay, that's so cool, you know. And I auditioned for a couple of the different characters, and I was like, I wonder who I got the call back for. And I was like, Rinko, this girl, okay. She's so far removed from myself. I'm such a very much like a tomboy. I very much like, you know, grew up with an older brother. I don't lean so much into it. It's like, I'm the very prim and proper girl that has this, you know, this overachiever superiority complex. I was like, I'm competitive, but like in a very different way than this girl. So I was just really surprised to get that. And the audition scenes were, there was like a monster portion of the audition scenes, and then there was the more grounded part of the audition that was the scenes between me and Shu, which is interesting because a lot of the other scenes were like for the other characters were between Hinako, the main character. So I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Why is mine with the boy where she's being absolutely insufferable?
Yeah.
But it was, we did those scenes. It was a lot of takes to try and get a grounded, even ground with the dynamic between her and Shu. And I think that's because, you know, it can't be too anime-like. It needs to be grounded for the Silent Hill game. It needs to be really based in reality. So it had to be like, she's not a caricature. She's not an over-the-top character. She's a real teenage girl that has all of these emotions, but struggles to kind of build this relationship with a boy she likes. So as much as all the things that she's saying maybe sounds like the right things to do when you're hitting on a person, she's still, you know, a very inexperienced girl, so she doesn't know what she's doing, so it has to be awkward. So it was like finding the balance and the realism in that was a big struggle. And but we got there, it seemed like. And then the monster parts, we only did a couple takes and they were like, all right, cool. We like it. So
Okay.
the monster parts have been fun.
Wow, I'm curious about like what the monster parts are at this point. Like what was the scene? Do you remember like what really you had to do?
Yeah, I think it was like her and Hinako's kind of big confrontation
Yeah.
where, you know, she finally lets go. And they said that, you know, she kind of transforms into this like demonic self. So I was like, okay, well, this is, all filters are off, and this is, you know, all of the stuff that she really has been feeling of like, oh, I'm so glad to finally get rid of you. And so it was that scene that, you know, ends up being, you know, more combat based in the game. But that was it. So it was a lot of like real shrieking and like just a distorted monstery type stuff. It was very creepy, but a lot of fun.
That's so cool. And I'm always wondering, like, obviously Rico is such a like very different character, very toxic, negative. I'm curious, like, what is the character bio description of Rinko? Like, how is she being described to you?
So it was the character description that they also had on the website.
Mhm.
They were saying that like she's a busybody, she's like a class president, she's very much like a little bit of a gossip, and those were like the big things that were pushed for her. So they weren't like particularly positive things to say, but it was clear that it's like, oh, she's kind of a go-getter, but in a very like conventional girlish way, you know. So it was, yeah, I think in my head I had it like, okay, she's a very, you know, she's kind of the mean girl. But yeah, it was interesting. I think one of the most interesting parts about her script and her dialogue is that where sometimes you get into the trope of like the mean girl is very passive aggressive and says things that are maybe underhanded. Rinko is not really underhanded. She's not very subtle about it. She's actually quite um like at face value, you know. She kind of says what she means. It might be really mean and rude, um, but she just says it out loud. She's not like some of her mind games are not as, you know, complex, I would say.
Nope.
She's pretty base value.
Yeah, that's true because I remember a line because she says, I think to Hinako saying like, "Has anyone ever told you that when you talk to Shu, you sound kind of manly?" And I was like, okay, I don't know if you should say that, that was very
Yeah.
rude, and I'm curious to know, like, what did you think about that line itself? Like, that is a rude thing to say.
Yeah, I laughed. I had to laugh. I mean, some of it was just so wild that I was like, I can't believe you really said that, Rinko. This is crazy. That line specifically, I think it was one of those lines that, it got buried under like some of the other stuff that I couldn't remember. And then I saw gameplay and I was like, she said that? Oh my God. But that was the thing that I was saying. I was like, you know what? I kind of respect that she's not just saying it behind her back, like, oh my God, have you noticed that? She's just like, Hinako, have you noticed that? You sound kind of family. If anything, I kind of respected her more for it because I'm like, she doesn't, she'll say it to your face, I suppose.
But was this like an only voice role, or was there some kind of like a facial capture also involved?
Yeah, well, so all of the Japanese performers had done the performance capture, so it is their likeness mostly, I think. And so they were doing the performance capture. On our side, we were almost like double. So the most of the performances had already been set. I think there was still maybe some adjustments that were being made between us recording and them finishing up on their side. But yeah, we kind of really following the lead of the Japanese performers, and yeah, the actress for Rinko, Yuka Ijima, I hope I'm saying that right. She was really fantastic and like so expressive just with all of her facial movements and her performances physically. And she had a really wonderful way of conveying a lot of innocence, but also quite a bit of like venom in her deliveries that I was trying to really like emulate of like she doesn't need to be over the top mean, but like it's just it's almost coming from like a naive, innocent place.
Mhm.
So it was wonderful getting to follow her lead.
That's so cool. Yeah, there are moments where I'm like, wow, I will not. I don't know if I should run maybe because there's some looks that she gives. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm scared. Um, and
Yeah.
like Rinko is such a crazy character, and if you like had to meet Rinko and she's saying things like the said what she said to Hinako, like what would you say to her? Would you say something back?
If I met Rinko in person, wow, that's quite the question. I would. I'm a very nice person, I like to think, until somebody is gives me a reason to be otherwise, and I have a pretty quick fuse then. I feel like we'd probably get into a bit of a confrontation. I'd be like, "What are you sound man?" But yeah, I don't know. It's also an interesting thing of like meeting Rinko in this Silent Hill kind of environment. You never really know what's based in reality, what's not. Um, and so, and there's a certain part of things where you can sense that I'm like, I don't think anything I could say will change your mind. You have a very set way of thinking, and I'm like, I don't know if me getting into this confrontation with you is gonna change anything. But I would probably if I was there at least seeing something, I would speak. I would be like, "What are you talking about? Like that is." I would call her out and just be like, "That's a really mean thing to say. That's not very ladylike." I would say
Yeah.
that might strike a card with her.
I know in the very beginning of the game where Hinako and like everybody sees this fog kind of coming in, and then everybody's running. And I'm curious, like if you, Frankie, are in like in that situation, fog is coming in, what do you do? Like, do you just run for your life? Like, how fast are you running at this point?
Oh man, I will say there. I think Rinko had the right idea to just book it. I would probably at least call out to friends. I'd be like, "Let's go. We have to go." But yeah, if you see a natural disaster coming towards you, my first instinct is to run.
Yeah.
I know that I think it was Shu was at least like, "Hey, we gotta go, come on." But it also that was such a crazy, you're off to the races so quickly in this game that you're just having a wonderful little moment with your friends, and then all of a sudden, Sakuko is just popping out into these crazy, hives of stuff. I'm just like, what is happening? I think like if my friend was there and I had seen that happening, that would be a very difficult situation of like I would be torn between like I want to help you. I don't know if there is any help, but we should also head out. So that's so much happens in that one split moment.
You mentioned like, horror, and you didn't play that much, but are you a horror fan? Like, do you watch horror movies, or do you play some of the horror, or do you stay away from them?
I ironically have done quite a bit of like work in horror
Yeah.
stuff, especially in like on-camera short films, and then also, my other on-camera movie that's coming up, Lost of Pastor, too, is a horror comedy, and uh, then yeah, having worked on this, it's been funny how the horror kind of has come and been like, no, you will be part of the community. And I'm like, yes, I will. Because I love to act in it. I think it's a lot of fun to act in it. But being on the viewer side of it is it's very intense. And it's like it's one of the most immersive types of like genres that you could be playing because it really is trying to elicit very strong reactions from you, the viewer. So I think it's been a very I'm not a huge horror person because it's a lot. But I respect the genre a lot and I'm glad that I get to work in it and I loved, working in it. But no, I haven't been much of a big horror fan when it comes to film, and I've played a couple of video games. Honestly, they're so much fun too. I remember being younger and playing a lot of like the zombie games. What was it? Left 4 Dead, I think was a big one.
Oh yeah.
And it's a yeah, they're just like a lot of
Yeah.
fun. But it's I'm just I when as soon as it gets dark at night and I can't see out my windows because it's all pitch black, I'm like, oh no, something's coming to get me. I don't need anything more to like fuel my imagination. So not usually turning to horror right away.
Well, looking at like Silent Hill F and the cutscenes and the scenes, the way it looks, what was like your reaction on how everything looks like and how eerie it is and how the some of the things are like? What was your reaction towards that?
I Oh my gosh. It's been amazing seeing it from they had rendered a lot of stuff for some of our playback to just be like, okay, and then this is what this effort looks like. So you got to see a little bit of the world and I was like, oh my God, it's really beautiful, but not all of the details were there. So then having seen it now when it's completely fully done and seeing all of the like it's so beautiful. It's absolutely stunning and gorgeous. The way that they made the town look, but it's also like so revolting in a way, it's almost like grotesque how much detail they put into stuff, and that's intentional. That you're like, oh my God, they're just beautiful flowers that look like organs that are like splattered across the ground. You really can't see that too much when I was seeing some of the first renditions of it, but now that I was playing it, and it's funny, as a cast we've been playing Silent Hill F, and we were playing it on colorblind mode
Okay.
because our Shu Nicholas Leung is colorblind, so we were curious, and so it was all very orange and like a much more pastel colors, and I was like, "Oh, this is so beautiful!" And it's all also like amazing that they had this feature
Yeah.
available for people. And we were like, "Okay, now let's switch it to regular," and everything is so red. Everything is so intensely, viscerally red. I was like, "This looks like blood everywhere." um, it was it's a lot to like on your senses, because everything is so dark and the shadows, but everything that you do see is just really pretty and
Yeah.
gross.
Yeah. One of the moments, like I was talking about earlier, is Rinko's, the way she is so the hatred towards Hinako and how she looks at her at times. And there's a scene that I want to show you, which is where Rinko is like pushes Hinako, I suppose, down the stairs. And I just
Ah,
love that scene because that scene is so tense and I'm like, oh my God, what is happening here?
You klutz. You fell down the stairs.
Just strolling on
Laura,
by.
what happened?
Well, you're going to protect me, right? I'm not tough like Hinako, you know?
Yeah, don't worry. Stay close to me.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my goodness. That like the switch between just being so, oh my God, you got hurt, that sucks, to being like completely helpless and so emotive, like I need help. It's just,
Yeah,
you have to laugh. I don't know. It's so absurd.
it is. And like, yeah, it's amazing how she just reacts very like, oh, that's good. That's good to hear. And she just walks away.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, sure. I would expect you to say that, I think. And it's just the way her eyes are looking at, just like she's, if she had a knife, she's just gonna stab her or something. And that whole
Yeah.
music and everything that's building up is such terrifying for me.
hmm I remember seeing that for the first time. I mean, that was honestly the one big scene that I really took with me after recording. I was like, people are gonna have some reactions to that one. That's gonna be a fun one to see everyone play through, because it's such a like, what are you doing moment. And I think in the game there's like a sequence between her falling down and then her waking up. But for me, when I was watching it, I was like, I was watching it back to back, so I was just like, this is crazy, this is wild. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some really wild scenes, and yeah, like technically after the scene, she goes into another dimension, and then a whole lot of playthrough happens, and then the other scene kind of plays through. But yeah, that relationship, and I'm and like it's interesting to see that relationship. How do you think? How do you feel like Ringo truly feels towards Hinako? Like, is it really full on hatred towards her, or did that develop over time? Do you feel like?
Yeah. No, I don't think so at all. And that's the hill I will die on for Rinko. I don't think that she wants to hate Hinako. I think that it's a jealousy thing. It's her own insecurities that are really just taking hold of her. And in this Silent Hill world, I think it's all of her worst it's all of Hinako's like worst fears about what people think of her, and it's also all of the worst traits of Rinko that are being amplified, that you're really seeing kind of like what a monster she's becoming in this. But I think especially because I didn't get to read all of the notes that are left around from Rinko's journals and diaries, but I did know, just having seen her cutscenes and just like trying to understand myself of like how to empathize with this character. I'm like, I don't think it's that she wants to hate Hinako. I think she likes the idea of having her as a friend, but she's just so infatuated and obsessive over this guy's shoe that every time that she feels neglected or overlooked by him because he, is so much closer with Hinako, it's just another like chipping at her, it's just like it's another little jab to her heart that at this point, so many toxic feelings come from this jealousy that it's just like overtaken any other positive from the relationship. But I think that like, if this was a different time period, that hopefully, because there's all these societal pressures too about being like a woman in the 1960s Japan, and the idea of like marriage is so important for women that the most important thing in your life is to be attractive to men, is to be able to find a partner, kind of. It's just like all these stakes and all these things are layering up that I think drives Rinko to be completely unhinged. But I like to think that they were friends for a reason. I like to think that there's some admiration that she has there, like for Hinako, of seeing, seeing how she really it is kind of falling for her, and seeing, all of the jealousy of like she's an amazing athlete and people just kind of like gravitate towards her. I think there's a lot of admiration behind the jealousy too. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much in that because it feels like there's so much hatred already, and that's why I believe like, oh yeah, she must be hating her, or in some ways because of Shub. That's how it's coming going through, and we see that sort of like towards like some part where they kind of confront each other, and I think there's a portion in the game where Hinako, I don't know what happens to her, but she is sort of killing every one of her friends. There's a scene where she's in the other side of the world. She's sort of killing everybody, and I love your performance in one of them because Rinko is supposedly dying. She's fallen into this lava, and she's supposedly dying, and that's a very
Yeah.
powerful scene, and I love that scene.
Just for once. Think about how he feels. You're a traitor. You played with his heart. Say you're sorry. Get on your knees and beg for forgiveness. Can't you hear me? Why don't you say something? Hinako!
Ooh.
I really felt bad for her at that scene. I felt like she was so helpless. I'm like, what are you doing? And then she does it and she screams. It's so like you've done like such an incredible job. Like that screaming and that painful like feeling of like I felt helpless about it. Like, what do you think about that scene? And how did you like? I'm curious about like going back to that moment and recording those moments. Like, what was that like for you?
God, worst sauna ever. That was I honestly thought that everybody had that scene. But I now realized like after it came out, I was like, oh, you guys didn't get the lava scene? Oh, that's like specifically because for Rinko, just her the furies of her jealousy and anger has enveloped her. I guess it's poetic. Yeah, that was interesting because like she's in this helpless situation, right? Where she's like really at the mercy. And instead of begging for her life or anything like that, she still has this face to like confront Hinako and to still be so combative when like she's in a completely helpless position. So it's just it was interesting, I think, to see that side of her and just to kind of recognize like, okay, she's not really the type of person to back down to anything, even when she is in a complete a mess like that. Like her dedication to Shu, I guess, just really prevails anything and everything. But yeah, I mean that was we only did a couple takes of that scene because it is like it's tough on the throat, but it was it's just really intense. You have to at that point get so physical about it. And you can even see, oh my God, the developer, like the little sweat glistening off of her head and stuff. They did a really amazing job. My director, Jamie, and just like they really let us live in our own space, I think, in the studio. So it's like it's as a big studio, you're just there in front of the screen but like it was like really nice and dim and you really just had to psych yourself up and do whatever you can to just like physically feel worked up of like, pumping your arms and like hyperventilating a little bit of just being like, okay, we have to really get in this like tortured headspace. And I think the part that I was trying to access the most was just the panic of it because again, she might be scared, but I think it's all just like anxiety induced. And by the time you have to start getting dropped into the lava, it was really, how can I make myself feel as uncomfortable as possible of just like contorting my body. Sometimes I like have to pinch myself too of just being like, feel pain, like just to like make it as immersive as possible and to like it's a weird thing in voice acting where sometimes you don't want every scream to sound the same, so you have to find ways of like dirtying them up, whether it's like, this should be this sounds bad, but like, wetter. I'm just like maybe she's like spittling on it, like maybe it's a more of a guttural thing, maybe it is more of like a head scream, like a throat scream. So it was I don't fun is a hard word, but it is fun when you get to challenge yourself as an actor in that way of trying to make everything as dynamic as possible. And how can you still be telling stories even if it's not a dialogue, even if it's just a scream of like, how can you really be telling the story of your the pain, the burning, the, you know, the regret, all of these things in this one scene.
Yeah, well, it's so amazing to know like how it all kind of happens, like how you have to go so far in. And obviously you've done so many roles, and this is one of those roles where you have to dig and go into the negative thoughts and have all these painful like moments. Like it must be like a lot of energy must be going out. You must be completely drained after moments like these.
Yes, yeah. I mean, usually these sessions just end up being shorter sessions. They
Mm.
keep it for like a day where it's like we're gonna get really intense on this day. So uh yeah, it was physically draining. Like it was very hard on the throat when you've gone so many hours of like, well, it wasn't that many hours. They were really great about making sure we didn't completely blow out our throats, but it was uh it was still very physically taxing. And you really do start sweating. Like it's the adrenaline is very real, that when you like put yourself in that position, that even after you still feel like a little shaken, a little like it's that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I guess I'm safe now. You know, we've gotten away from the danger, and but you still have all these like chemicals running through your body. So it's just it was a lot, but it was, I mean, I'm glad that it all, you know, really came out. And but yeah, I'm really proud of the work that we did there. And yeah.
Hell yeah. Like, yeah, you're able to show us all the feelings that a player would get like when they're watching these moments and these scenes. And so you did a terrific job in those moments to give us that feeling and help us,
Mm.
get through the story and understand what's happening. So, kudos to you to really go through that deep and sense of pain and still give us that performance. Yeah, it's incredible. And one of the moments like later on, like I think it's the end of Rinko, I suppose, is where she turns into this boss monster character. And I didn't expect her because I was like, I guess we're not seeing her here, but she comes out of for me she comes out of nowhere. I'm like, I okay, she's
Yeah.
Rinko, great. Hi. And so it was like very fiery lava, and she's so angry.
Gonna see here. Totally normal. Ah!
Today is such a happy, perfect day. So happy. Rinko? Because today, Hinako will die and be gone for good! Rinko! I'll die. I'll be gone for good. Just like you want me to. I swear. So forget all about me. Just live and be happy! I love you! I will scour every last trace of your name from my memory and the world! I want you
How like that boss, like that whole character, how does that, her face is completely melted off and is coming out here, like how does that look, how does that feel like for you?
It's so epic. I mean, that is insane. It was again so cool, so beautiful, absolutely terrifying. Uh I think it's just so cool how much they're able to say, and like, and how many themes they're able to bring in with this one monster. Like I've always been looking at it. I'm like, it's so interesting that for her, her face is already kind of peeling off, and that's such a big theme about, like, you know, the faceless woman, like losing your identity with stuff, and the fact that her face is already like falling off and is all on fire. I mean, like the idea that, you know, fire is such a theme around Rinko, it makes complete sense. And like I said, I think it's just as helpless and damsel as distress as she tries to show, to like, she's very selective about her vulnerability and how she like shows vulnerability. It's always weaponized, but I think underneath all of it is just been this, you know, boiling rage. And that's why lava is such a great use and like of telling that, you know, story of Rinko. So this was actually one of the audition scenes. It was the like, it's such a happy, wonderful day. But I think that the way that they introduced this boss battle was completely by surprise for me too. And yeah, it really comes out of such very calm, peaceful moment of like, oh, this is like happening. They're in another ceremony. It's completely unexpected, and then it's like, wait, that's you, Rinko? This is insane. And I love that that you really get to, I mean, that's one of my favorite things about the how Silent Hill has been introducing its monsters, that it really makes you think, that it just kind of throws them at you, and then you have to figure out by seeing all the little details in the character design of like, oh my gosh, that's what that represents. This is the person that, you know, they're seeing in this. So yeah, that was such an epic fight scene, and I think for that fight scene specifically, she really gets to take down a lot of those, you know, filters that she's had in terms of like interacting with her. Now it's like they really get to finally have this confrontation between each other of like, this is what I really think of you, this is what I'm really think of you. So in a way, it's a very cathartic scene, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm curious, like, with there's so much pain, and there's so much hate and so much rage. Like, how many takes did you have to go through to that? It was like quick 2 takes, 2, 3 takes, and it was easy and done.
I think for that one, we did take quite a couple of takes. I think emotionally, we were kind of pretty much in the pocket because we had already done it. You know, for the callback, we've already kind of discussed it a lot and stuff like that. And I don't, the rage and the yelly screaminess is just a little bit easier for me to access, I guess. That I was like, oh, you need me to just go this high? We'll go there. But it was actually the timings that were kind of tricky in this, because she has so much physicality during this as well, that it's like every time she's swinging while she's also monologuing, and so that was quite the experience. And there's like one specific line that it was a lot of dialogue, you know. I think it's one of the last things that she says, like the big swing, like, and the I will kill you, you got forgot or something. But we really had to go through that pretty quickly to get all of the lines in, but it actually worked out pretty beautifully. I was like, it feels a little rushed, but in a way of, it's just like, I have so many things to say to you and I am saying it now, you know. So that was a really it really worked out really well. I was really happy with how that all turned out.
Do you think that you yourself would be playing through the entire game from start to finish, finding all the endings? Is that something that you're doing?
Yeah, I hope so. I think it makes it a little easier that like I know everything that's coming up, that
Yeah.
I can handle the horror a little bit better. But I really do want to see, because again, there's so many details, and there's so many details that you don't get for the first playthrough. You have to
Yeah.
play New Game Plus, which is a really cool, and I think you actually see a lot more humanizing entries about Rinko in that in your further playthroughs. So that's something that I really I'm intending to play through this game. It's gonna be very scary, but I will do it. But yeah, I think it's, you know, it's interesting being you know, the voice of this character that is so, you know, debate, like people have a lot of thoughts about her, and I do like that a lot of people have been kind of starting the conversation of like looking beyond just like, oh, she's a bully and she's terrible, but it's like, okay, also, but she's being affected in this society in this way, and this is what makes her actually a deep character, and the writers did an amazing job of allowing that for her. But yeah, it's interesting when you're talking about like the whole cast and stuff. It's just like, I feel like we all provide such interesting dynamics for Hinako, of like, this is a, you know, Sakuko is somebody that has always been very clingy to her. It's her, but like, you know, never as vengeful and hateful as me, but like I am a very big foil for her, that like all of the things that she's rejecting about society, I'm like really embracing. And then, you know, like, it's just how every single relationship between Hinako and her friends is so much deeper. It's a really, yeah, it's really cool how they created such interesting characters in this world.
Yeah, and it's I've said this to a lot of actors who I've talked to. Like, it always blows my mind that these stories are being told in video games. Like,
Yeah.
like 20, I think 15, 20 years ago, we would play Street Fighters and Tekken and whatnot and racing games. Like,
Yeah.
yay, this is fun. And then we play these games, and by the end of it, I'm like, what? Like that character had to go through that? I'm like, and because like some people come through and say like, oh, I try to get away from my life and play a game so that I can have fun, but then you get away from your life and then play a game where you are getting even more tense, even more crazy about when you see these stories. So it's absolutely crazy to
Yeah.
see, especially Silent Hill F having crazy stories like this.
Yeah, and that's honestly some of my favorite games to play, the really long narrative games. And I think that that's something that Hollywood's also really catching on,
Yeah.
with wow, this IP is a like this format is a really cool way to tell stories because, you have really long act one, act two, act threes to get to know the character. There's so many opportunities to bring in little pieces of personality between each character. And also it's such an interesting way to tell a story and to like get dialogues happening because in a certain way the player does have an influence in this story, and in the story that you tell, and like it really is an interesting way to show like consequences of your actions. So yeah, yeah, I
Definitely.
love video games.
Yeah, I love to do. And so to end this thing, we have like some fan questions that people want to ask. And
Um,
first one comes from Ivan Lopez. They ask, were you prepared for what Rinko would demand for you?
um, I do think I was prepared from the auditions because they put some of the diciest things that represent Rinko's character, that like, oh, she's a very jealous person. This is the kind of monster that she turns into. So I think that, yeah, I don't know. You're always I was prepared. I knew what I was signing up for with this character, but it was still a surprise every time I had to say a wild line of dialogue or I mean the stairs really did take me by surprise.
Yeah,
But yeah.
they are all that. Yeah, that scene is definitely surprising for me. Next one comes from Shimmer Eyes. They ask, would you say Rinko shares something with you? And if yes, what would that be?
I actually do. I do find some ways of empathizing with her in some senses. Like I personally feel like I'm a quite a determined and like competitive person. So the feelings of jealousy, I feel like everybody have, and I've certainly had these moments where, you're looking at somebody that gets something that you want that you feel like you're working really hard towards, and it's like, well, why do they get it and then I don't? But I think that's part of maturing. That's why I'll defend her. I'm like, I don't think she's had time to mature. She's only, 16 years old. She needs more time to figure out how to learn and like to deal with these emotions and like to not take it out on everybody else. But I feel like those feelings of jealousy, that's a very relatable thing. And yeah, so that's where I'm like, I see where you're coming from, but you're not handling it any of this the correct way, Rinko.
Need to grow up, Rinko. Yeah, I know. Like only if she, like after a few years, maybe she would realize, like, oh, I should not have said those things to Hinako. Maybe.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Black Man Blitz asks, how has your life changed since your breakout role as Conduit?
Oh my gosh, since Conduit, yeah, she really did change my life. It was it's such a validating experience getting to be a part of huge games like this, that you're on the right track, that like if you know, it's been validating to me as an artist and as a person that like if you're following the things that you're passionate about, if you have an ambition or you have a dream that you want to like really pursue, that just like work towards it, and it like really amazing things could happen, I think it's just been a really validating experience in that sense of like I'm in the right field, and that the work that I'm doing is resonating with people and is making a difference. And I it's been a very special journey, I would say, and it's been cool also getting to have that extra connection with other people that really love video games, because I grew up really liking video games and anime and stuff, and now getting to say that like I really work in the field, I can help contribute to this. It really just makes me feel like I belong a little bit more in the community. So that's nice.
Wow, that's very sweet. That's amazing. The same person has another question, like how do you handle rejection and prevent it from affecting your confidence?
Uh,
Tough one.
it does affect your confidence.
Yeah.
It just does. I think I think that inevitably it does affect your confidence. At least for me, I'm a very critical person. I'm a very like detail oriented person, and but I like to think of, I like to try and think of it as more of just feedback, you know, of okay, maybe this just wasn't right for me, and trying to take out the goodness of it, the talent from it, and just try and look at it more critically of like, all right, this, you know, I didn't get this. I'm curious who got this, or, you know, looking at it again and listening back to myself and being like, yeah, maybe I wasn't the right fit for X, Y, and Z, but that doesn't mean that I'm not a good performer. But like just trying to take it as, you know, it's I think in this career you kind of have to be a little delusional and just be and at the end of the day know that, you know, the people who love me say that they're supportive and that I'm good at this. And I, you know, when I look at my work, I find things that I really find joy in it. And trusting that other people also find joy in that. And yeah, just keep moving forward and keep like taking rejection as like, it's just not this one, you know? That doesn't mean that I'm not meant for any other roles, but it's like, one is just not the one for me. And we just move forward.
And I always look behind you, and you have this wonderful conduits fan arts, and it's so cool. And
Yeah.
I want to know from you, like you continue to give like more to this character. You have been giving so much to this character since this 2023, and it's been before that. It's been going on, and it continues to go on. And I'm curious, like in so many ways, Conduit is learning a lot from you. Is there anything you have learned from her?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think that, you know, she sacrifices a lot. Like she literally puts herself in harm's way every time that she is part of the games. Like the entire suit that she has is kind of like taking from her. But and I think that but at the end of the day, she's still so resilient and she still always like pushes forward. And that is always like a beautiful thing for me. And she's always doing it because of her, you know, family in mind, because she has people that she's really striving to be great for. And that I think she kind of wants to inspire other people like her, because she was started out as like a fan of the Apex games. And so I think that like she knows how impactful it is to see other people succeed and like be good people at the same time, you know. So I think that for me, she's a big inspiration for me, that I'm just like, you know, she's just keeps moving forward, taking the hits on the chin, but like really striving to bring about good, and you know, to hopefully inspire other people like her.
Yeah, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. And thank you so much, Frankie, today for giving the opportunity to talk about all of this. This has been wonderful to know from you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun.